Hey everyone, I'm Jen Mayer, and this is a small group extra or midweek moment, and we are talking about the preaching series Unstuck. And we're specifically looking at this week's message where Mike suggested that we pay attention to the narratives or the stories we tell ourselves that we sometimes use to justify bad behavior or bad choices. And I figured we'd ease into it with a simple question. If you are driving down the highway and the posted speed limit is 55 miles an hour, what is the likely speed that your car is going? And yeah, I expect it to be higher than 55. But the question that I want to ask is not what the speed is. It is, for whatever speed it is, why do you think that's okay? When did you first make that decision that that was okay? And has that ever been checked or adjusted over time? And then a kind of question that goes with it is, if that speed is kind of justified in your mind, if you were doing that speed and came upon a police cruiser, would that in any way alter your behavior? And if so, and again, I'm not saying I'm immune from this. I've done this. Slowed down when I saw an officer. If I know the behavior needs to be adjusted in front of law enforcement, why do I think it's still okay otherwise? So that's one way of thinking about this question. That's an example of the stories we might tell ourselves. And everybody's actual story will be different, but the question is, have you thought about yours? Second question. What is the last thing that you set out to accomplish that you failed to accomplish? And since I'm sitting in this room, it's pretty easy to say, hey, the walls of this room are not Tahitian blue, even though there is a gallon of Tahitian blue paint sitting in the entryway to my house that I bought 2 months ago. And I can actually tell you my explanation, which is that if I actually went to the wide webcam, this office is a disaster, and in order to paint it, I would actually have to file all of the papers in piles and clean it and move all the furniture and then figure out what to do with the poorly jointed walls. And then and only then could I paint it. And so there's a lot of explanation in there that makes me feel kind of okay about not doing that. And yet there is part of me that went, no, you really actually did want to get that done. Here's our third question for the day. When is the last time you noticed a splinter in your brother's eye while failing to see the log in your own? And I think that's a good biblical question. Clearly it comes from Jesus. But I think it reflects that notion that it's so much easier to see where other people have these disconnects and so much harder to see our own. And so I want to offer one final question to help kind of open up this concept, which is, can you think of a bad decision you made that didn't seem like a bad decision at the moment you made it? Because I don't think that if you look at kind of our top 10 worst life decisions, most of the time they seemed like a pretty good idea at the time. Rarely do we go into those with, kind of an arm twisted behind our back. Most of the time we go along. We think that there's some reason for what we're going to do that makes it seem wise or okay. So if you can think of something like that, the worst decision, what I'd really like to encourage you to do is to think about what story went with that helped you get to the conclusion that that was really the best choice at the time, and to use that in comparison to any of the areas you've already identified where you might be feeling stuck, and think, am I using any kind of similar logic, any kind of similar failed or flawed narrative where I might be setting myself up again? So that's just a few thoughts on the notion of the stories we tell ourselves, and what we need to be on the lookout for to help get ourselves unstuck. Have a great week.